I'm Chance.
And I'm Sarah Catherine.
And this is Conservation Connection,
presented by Last Chance Endeavors.
We are a husband and wife team running a wildlife education nonprofit. It's focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week, here on Conservation Connection, we do just that, introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day across the globe.
We talk to professionals in the world of conservation science and wildlife management, and we ask them about their career,
their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
This episode is a collaboration with EarthX here in Dallas, Texas.
EarthX is the largest Earth Day celebration in the world, and it brings in speakers from every corner of the environmental arena.
Listen in to hear the stories of today's environmental titans, covering everything from environmental law, ocean health, renewable energy, clean transportation, and so much more.
Let's get to the show.
Welcome to another EarthX episode. We're so excited to be sitting down with Doug Woodring. He's the founder of Ocean Recovery Alliance.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me in Texas.
Yes, absolutely. We're so happy to be here, especially Chance, I know, because he's from San Antonio.
San Antonio native.
All right. I was here two years ago. We had our plasticity event in this building. We hosted it here with EarthX. So I didn't really actually think I'd come back so fast, but it's good.
Welcome back. We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start with you telling us about Ocean Recovery Alliance?
Sure. I set this up about 10 years ago. I had no plan to set up an NGO. I've worked in Asia for over 25 years, and I grew up in California, so I like a lot of outdoor stuff. But right out of university at Berkeley, I went to Japan, and I got a job with one of the largest fishing companies in the world, and I was the first foreigner in that fishing company, trading seafood.
Wow.
And I learned so much about the ocean and the fishing that scared the daylights out of me and made me really realize that the world has no idea what's going on in terms of how much fish and seafood we consume and where it comes from. And that stuck with me in my heart and my head. I said, someday I want to slow this down or make it better. And I didn't really have a way to do that. I went to grad school, though, and one of the things I studied was environmental economics at Johns Hopkins. I have an MBA from Wharton, so I have a kind of a different background than a normal ocean person. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a ecologist, but it's just in my heart, and I use the outdoors a lot through sports. I run organized swimming races, ocean swimming races, and outrigger paddling competitions. And so I'm on the water a bit more than other people who just walk around the street. And I see it, especially in Asia, it's much more pronounced, the floating trash when you're diving or on the water. And about 10 years ago, I learned about the gyre, which I hadn't heard about in the North Pacific, where the quote-unquote island is, which is not an island. But we did an expedition out there. We brought Scripps Oceanography with us. We co-funded them. And it was the first time that real science got done on plastic in the North Pacific by a credible ocean institute. And that really changed the dynamic of the discussion.
And about what year did that happen?
This was 2009.
Okay.
So the movie Plastic Ocean came because of our event and our expedition. They came on our trip to get their first footage. And that movie has since made a big impact on the mass market.
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty much an entrepreneur for environmental issues, and I run the NGO creating programs that surprise people. And creative surprise is what I like to do because it kind of lures them in without knowing that they're going to be involved in something cool. And then they say, wow, that's amazing. Let's do more. And
it's always good to have that hook.
Yeah. And so with companies, they often are, especially in Asia, a little bit worried about NGOs and corporate responsibility. On the fringes, the companies might think, oh, this isn't really directly in our space of pain or gain, or they're not trying to do anything bad. But once you get them into the discussion, then you can start having meaningful dialogue with them about, hey, why don't you guys think about changing this or change your packaging? Why don't you do something to help support this program with the kids or the education or this event?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely much more powerful to work with somebody to say, hey, let's adjust what you're doing to make it good for you and good for the environment. That's such a more effective strategy than saying, you have to stop doing this because it's causing this problem. If you present solutions and ways for them to move forward that is intrinsically good for them and for their business, that's going to be so much more effective than trying to shoehorn in these regulations.
Right. So I'm based in Hong Kong, but we do global work. We've done work with the UN and the World Bank, and I speak at a lot of conferences and just try to find as many touch points as we can of people who are interested in this topic. When I started, the plastic issue was new, very new, and in Asia, it wasn't really something people cared a lot about. But now, especially the last year, because of a lot of different things and the Blue Planet 2, the world has woken up on this topic. So now we're pretty much one of the only groups who has been working on this issue globally who doesn't live in the West. Most of every other group is in the US or Europe, and we're the only ones who've been doing it from outside of the US and kind of right in the hot spot of where a lot of things are.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that as we were learning more about you and your organization, and that you were in Hong Kong, and I thought that was really unique. And in speaking with you before this interview, it's obvious that a lot of the work you do kind of relates back to art. You have a couple of things to share with us here today, but I also wanted to ask you about the Great Art Project, and that's actually spelled GRATE. Correct? Right. Yeah.
Correct. So grate is the storm drain or the grate on the side of the street where the water runs into the storm system or the sewage system, and that's where a lot of garbage goes. And in much of the world, you might see little plaques around the U.S. and especially coastal towns. Those are often created by the government, and they might be metal, and they sit on the curb, and it reminds you, if you look down there, it says, don't dump in the drain, it will kill the fish and pollute. But no one in Asia has that. Mm-hmm. And when it's also not done, we did it through artists, because if you bring artists into the messaging, then your chances of getting the whole artists following also can be part of the outreach. So instead of just a government saying to the public, please don't dump in the drain, now you have 8 cool artists all saying, hey, go check out my little piece of art. And we did it with ceramic, not metal, because in the days when we were starting, people were actually sometimes stealing metal for scrap metal to sell it into China when China was really booming and needing a lot of materials. And so we picked ceramic, which is also a traditional Chinese material for art. And so we cemented these. It took us 2 years to get approval from the government because they had never had anyone donate something to the land of Hong Kong.
Wow.
And glue it there. And so it was a totally different angle of giving,
right,
as opposed to leasing or using. And so we got the approval in one district where there's a lot of beaches and I still run into people and say, oh my gosh, I saw that down on the street. And it's almost, you can have a little like a Pokemon contest, because there was 8 different versions, and you can have kids go out and try to find all 8,
awesome.
Within the street
really
system.
Cool.
So imagine if we replicate this around other towns and cities around the world with their own art. It's just another great way to great way to keep the water clean from your drains.
Well, and what a great way to take something that would otherwise be boring or, just a government mandated sign sitting on the curb and turn it into a community event, to make it something that kids want to go out and find. And when they're engaged in that, you're going to learn, why does it matter that there's grates and there's these signs on the grate? Oh, it's because this goes straight out to the ocean, and we really should care what's getting out there.
And what was amazing is, firstly, we had volunteers come from companies to help us glue them on. So that got them engaged, and they loved it. But when we were trying to get approval, one of the government officials actually said, oh, why would you do that in the middle of the street in a city? Because people aren't thinking about the ocean and the water there. And we said, that's exactly why we are doing it.
That's the whole
because they
point.
do not think about it there. And you want them to think about it, because if they throw their cigarette butt or their bottle cap on the road and the rain comes, it's going to go right down the drain. And
Absolutely.
that's why we want them to think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how long has this program been going on, and what's the impact that you've seen since it started?
Well, it's been going about 2.5 years. We've had them up.
So it's still pretty young.
Still pretty young. They're still on there. Unfortunately, once in a while, a truck will go by the curb and knock one off, because it's on the vertical side of the curb, not on the upper part, because they were afraid someone might trip on it or something. Unfortunately, we're doing so many other projects. We're not out there pushing to expand, and the other districts haven't sort of called us up and say, oh, we want them too. That's what we were hoping. So it's still out there, and people still see them, and it's great to get their comments, but we haven't really expanded it. How much is solved in terms of what gone into the drain? We didn't do studies on that, because we don't have access to the drainage systems, literally. So, and Hong Kong gets a lot of rain, tropical rain. Just last week we had 5 to 7 inches in 1 hour.
Wow.
And so when that happens, a lot of things, move around in terms of garbage and waste. And that's just another reason not to let it get on the street.
For sure. For sure. Now, you've got some stuff sitting on the table in front of us, and I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about what we're looking at here. Speaking of art projects and how they can impact and do good things for the environment. So why don't we start with the little boxes?
Yeah, so the boxes we just made a whole new series of jigsaw puzzles. And I was in Turkey having dinner with some people who were about to compete in the Turkish jigsaw puzzle championships. And one of them was a puzzle maker. And I said, oh, can you make a puzzle with one of my photos of all the trash on the beach because it's so colorful? And she said, of course we can. And I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be the coolest jigsaw puzzles ever for education. So now we have 2 lines of jigsaw puzzles. One is beach trash from different parts of the region in Asia, which look bad. And the others are collected plastic, but they're sorted by colors and artistically taken. So that's called the Plastic Buffet series. And the other one is the Beach series. But the point is that you get kids or grandparents or families putting the pieces back together instead of a beach cleanup where you're trying to pull them off the beach. In this case, you're putting them all back together to make the image, and it really makes you think, where did this stuff come from? So it's a pretty fun way to engage people and you can have competitions, you can have schools do teams of 4 or 5 and see how fast they can put them together, and it's just another way to raise awareness. So we want to sell these in museum stores and aquarium stores and different places where you have science and games and things.
Going right back to that environmental entrepreneur. What a great way. I mean, jigsaw puzzles are the classic example of like a focus activity where you sit and you focus on one thing for an extended period of time, which is really rare nowadays. And leveraging that to have people focus on not only the image, but what the image means and how it's a part of a greater thing. It's so powerful. Yeah, that's awesome.
So when I've shown this to educators and people, they say, oh my gosh, that is the best idea. Because you can have people sitting on their coffee table for 3 hours trying to figure out where that bottle cap came from.
Well, and it's kind of interesting too, because thinking back to when I was a kid, my family would take summer vacations to the beach, and on rainy days, we would put together puzzles or jigsaw puzzles in the beach, and just thinking about other people who might kind of have that same tradition, and to be doing a jigsaw puzzle that looks at pollution and trash on the beach while you're at the beach, that can be a huge impact. And just being conscious of while you're out there to look for trash and pick up trash and think of the impact you can make.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So if you're listening right now, scroll down to the show notes. We're going to put a link to a little video where you guys can see these. And we're also going to put a link to where you guys might be able to find this product.
Right.
If somebody wanted to find this product, where would they go?
They can come to our website, oceanrecov.org. And there's a product page there we have for products for sale. We made some cool environmental products, a bag, pick-me-up bag. So when you're walking on the beach, it's made out of recycled bottles, but it hangs off your back and you can put trash in there very easily and keep your hands free.
Awesome. Now, there's another very interesting device sitting on the table in front of us. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is called the Badfish, and it is a handboard for body surfing. It's a very kind of unique sport. It's not stand-up surfing. It's not boogie boarding, but you get into the wave. Usually you wear fins, and you slide down the wave on the side of your body, and you put this on your hands, so it gives you sort of a hydroplane feeling. You get half your body off of the water and you shoot down the wave. And it's a handboard, and it's made from 100% recycled plastic. It's the first one like this is made from Australia. And it's a great example of collaboration with, and then the whole plastic world is very complicated in terms of solving these issues because there's so many types of plastic. And we run an event called Plasticity, which is all about plastic in its second life. So when you throw stuff away, how can you make something clever and new out of that garbage? Or how do you make fuel? Or how do you make building material? And this guy came out of the event in Sydney, and I said, what do you do? He said, I make surfing gear and surfing equipment. And I said, oh, really? I've always wanted to make this one thing. And he goes, I make those already out of wood. And I said, no, we need one out of recycled plastic. And so I got two other people who were in the conference who were speaking. And I said, we have the whole team here who can make these. And he already had the brand and he already has the retail. So just this week, I got the first hot off the press recycled handboard.
Very cool.
Out of recycled plastic. It's awesome.
So to describe it, it's about the size of a dinner plate. It looks like a tiny cartoon version of a surfboard. It's got that same like pointed nose and notched out back end.
It's got a hand grip so you don't lose it in the water. And it's also got a leash for your wrist. So if you do lose it in a wave, it won't float away. But it is about the size, half the size of a McDonald's plastic tray.
Oh, yeah. And that's a good comparison. Now, it's made out of recycled plastic. So where are you sourcing the plastics that go into these products?
So this is, I think it's 30% beach plastic and 70% avoided ocean plastic. So a lot of people come to me and say, I want to make a new product. I want to make sunglasses. I want to make these things out of beach plastic. How can I get it? And everyone thinks it's so readily available. And it is, but it's not in the terms of the volume and the type that you need at purity and at scale to really make products. So, and it's expensive to go out there and find the stuff that you really need to make the products with.
Especially because there's, talking a little bit about the chemistry behind plastics, there's lots of different types of plastics. Plastics is a really broad term. And so you can't just take this smorgasbord of whatever you find and melt it down and turn it into something new because it won't work the same way. So you kind of have to find only bottle caps or only this type of plastic waste and put all of that together.
Correct. And so we've done that. And that was a challenge, but it was more to find the right amount that can then go to the machine and make the guy's machining process worthwhile for him to do a batch of this material and then put it in the mold. But now we have the mold. Now we have the guy who grinds it. Now we know where to get the plastic. So it's a really cool product. Comes in 3 colors, and it's called Badfish, and the company's name WAW, W-A-W, in Australia.
I love it.
Really cool.
And I'm kind of curious, just looking at this Badfish here on the table. So it's blue, and what you have laying on top of it kind of shows all different types of like blue plastics. Do you find these plastics, sort them into different colors, and then that's what you use?
Yes. If you take mixed dirty plastic of all colors and put it into one batch and blend it, you'll get a gray. And so sometimes you might see street furniture that says it's recycled plastic or fake wood.
Yeah.
But it's often grayish. That's because they mix all the colors and they didn't do the sorting. If you want to get a blue one or a green one, you have to sort all the green bottle caps and get the green bottle caps to make these, or the red ones, and whatever, vice versa. And that's one of the challenges with recycling is the colors and the cost of just sorting and cleaning stuff. Someone made a great analogy to me, which I use in a lot of my talks. The difficulty of recycling is the same difficulty as if you were trying to reconstitute an omelet. So if you make an omelet out of scrambled eggs, ham, bacon, mushrooms, cheese, and onions, and then someone says, okay, great, put it back to the original contents. That's difficult.
Yeah, I would
And
say
that's
so.
pretty much what it is. Recycling is like when everyone puts all their garbage in a big black bag and sends it somewhere. Someone has to then reconstitute all that stuff and try to make money from it. And it's really tough.
Seems like a massive labor intensive process.
So one of our real pushes around the world to make it super simple for recycling is to have everyone just sort by wet and dry waste. Dry waste is everything paper, glass, metal, wood, cardboard. Wet is all the food waste. If you put the food waste in with the plastic, then both of them are worth nothing and they go to landfill. But if you keep them separate, then you can do much with the food waste. You can do organic composting. You can gasify it. If you've got cleaner plastic, then it's much easier for someone to hand sort it or make use of it and get it into the right recycling stream.
Now, going back to this idea of finding plastics and sourcing plastics being a really kind of labor-intensive process, especially for a government agency that's doing a ton of stuff, you've been working as part of a team that developed an app that makes it easier for people to find trash hotspots, right?
Yes.
So what's the name of this app?
This app is called Global Alert, and it's on both app stores. We have a website, globalalert.org. It's for when you're outside and you see a lot of trash near the water. What we want is we don't want trash to get in the water because once it goes in, it gets lost. You could take pictures of it in a creek or a river flowing down that river, because what we want is people to start managing their watersheds with the thought of this trash that is coming out of that creek will have the chance to get to the ocean. And if we stop it before that, it was not going to make it to the ocean. Most of the world is not using booms and nets and catchment devices in creeks and rivers. And this tool, when you take 3 photos and you put a GPS point on it, you might not be able to clean it up yourself. You might not know who to call, but at least you can report it. And once it gets these data points on the map, then other stakeholders in that area can make better management decisions, go do a cleanup, put up a boom, put up a net. If they know the flood's coming, they can get ready for that. If they know it's dry season, then maybe there's nothing there. And it's a great way for schools to learn about geography, waters, systems, high and low water season, rainfall and dry periods. But the main thing is to get people thinking about the big areas of trash that could get lost to the water.
And it's just like anything else. Seeing it and spending time on it and focusing on it is the only way that people are going to care. If you don't see it, if it's invisible,
that's correct.
It doesn't matter to you.
So now if your school goes out and takes 15 photos of 2 miles of river and there's some areas where the trash has accumulated, you can walk into anyone and put this up on a screen on a website, say, look, here's where we did it. Here's the GPS point. It was last Friday. This is how much there is. We estimate it's about 42 pounds and at 10 meters long. And then you have a discussion with the right people. They say, oh, wow, we didn't know that was there because we didn't go over there and we didn't see it.
And regulators aren't the ones that are walking the creeks. They're not the ones that are out,
That's right.
doing the boots on the ground, because their job is to be working in the offices, building those deals and those laws. So to provide them with that tool of, this is your district. This is 2 miles from your office. Here's where the problem is. This is where we need to focus our efforts. That makes a huge difference to their ability to do their job properly.
Right. So you can have schools that adopt a creek or a river like you adopt a highway. You don't have to check it every day. You don't have to have 1,000 people. You can have 3 people who make checks on a river of 2 miles long just twice a month. And that's already great data.
That makes a huge difference, even just that little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you founded Ocean Recovery Alliance about 10 years ago.
Yes.
What is the impact or the change or the difference that you have seen in the climate and in the world and concerning pollution since you started that from then to now?
That's a great question. I live in Asia, so I see a lot of more pollution than you see in the U.S. I would say that they've gotten a lot more aware of it themselves. The younger generation is more aware of it. People who didn't used to go recreate at the beaches maybe now go diving. And so the younger generation has been diving when their parents maybe never did. So they didn't appreciate the ocean. The main thing the biggest challenge is getting people outdoors to appreciate nature. Because if they don't like nature, they won't protect it. If they don't like an animal, if they don't like the leaves, if they don't like the flowers, they have no feeling to go protect that. So the super challenge is getting kids who live in big cities around cement all the time to feel this engagement. So climate change is, some people say it's coming and the storms are bigger, but it's on the trash side, it's not getting probably better. The population's growing. People are spending more. People have more ability to consume in these countries, and they want to consume like we have consumed in the US. So they want all of these things. They want them with convenience. They want to be able to throw things away. And the waste systems are not prepared whatsoever to handle this new material, which is plastic. New meaning the last 40 or 50 years. The recycling and the waste systems were set up for paper and glass and metal, and it was pretty easy to work. As you said, there's 7 families of plastic, but technically there's about more than 40,000 types within those 7 families.
Wow.
And so when you've got candy wrappers and potato chip bags and balloons and everything we all have has plastic. So there's really no way that we're going to get away from all of it. You need plastic for food packaging, to keep the food safe, to ship it around. But the challenge is what to do with that when it becomes garbage in its afterlife. And so I would say the awareness is much bigger, especially even in Asia. Climate change, China's doing a heck of a lot of stuff. And they move fast. When they say they want to do something, they go fast. So sometimes much better than here. Water quality is getting better. As mostly when government and countries get more wealthy, then the consumers or the population says, oh, I have a bit more wealth. Now I care a little bit more about my health and my environment. I want to have a better lifestyle. I'm not just trying to survive by just getting food every day. Now I want to have a bike path. I want to have a clean river. And so that's all starting to come, but needs to come faster.
Yeah. And just a couple of sentences, if someone asked you, what can I do to help the environment, what would you tell them?
I would say be creative and don't be afraid to ask questions when you see something that doesn't seem right to you. If you don't ask questions, then the people on the other side won't know that you're watching or caring. So a great example of this is sustainable seafood. If you walk into a restaurant and you ask the waiter or the waitress or the chef, hey, is your fish sustainable? Is your shrimp sustainable? They might have no idea. But if you don't ask them the question, they won't know that you care. And then they will go and figure out probably the next day, oh, where did we get our fish? Is it sustainable? What does that mean? Was it caught the right way? Was it grown the right way? Aquaculture. So use the Global Alert app, spread the word, and just be an active citizen. Get engaged in anything.
Be an active citizen. I think that's a great summation. Just be active. Don't be afraid to
be proud of doing the right stuff. And don't let your friends say, oh, why'd you pick up that piece of trash? You want to be the one to be the cool one to say, yeah, I got it. How come you didn't get it?
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us. We've had a great time. This is some really, really cool entrepreneurship that you've got to talk to us about today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me. Go EarthX.
Yeah.
Go EarthX. Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
We'd love to hear from you. So if you want to reach out, go to our website, lastchanceendeavors.com/contact, and shoot us an email.
We love questions from our listeners, so if you heard something that you want to know more about, be sure to let us know.
If you've got a minute to spare, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts will help other conservation-minded people find the show. We'd really appreciate it.
A big thanks to the people working to protect our planet, and a big thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week.